Divine signs revealed, Israel, Trump, and Iran in Scripture. A transforming journey to redemption. In the month of Chislev, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, as Nehemiah, the cupbearer, lingered in the palace of Shushan, a darkness loomed over his heart. The news delivered by his brother Hanani pierced his soul with anguish, for he learned of Jerusalem's ruin, its walls broken down and its gates consumed by fire. The city, once a beacon of God's presence and promise to Israel, now lay desolate, a mere shadow of its former glory. Overwhelmed by this calamity, Nehemiah sank to his knees, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. With trembling hands, he recounted the sins of Israel, turning from their covenant with the Almighty. He pleaded for mercy, not only for himself but for the people he loved, seeking favor in the sight of the king. Days turned into weeks, yet the burden in Nehemiah's heart only intensified, like a flame stoked by despair. Then, a pivotal moment arrived while serving in the royal court. King Artaxerxes, noticing Nehemiah's sorrowful countenance, questioned him. "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick?" "This is nothing but sadness of the heart." In that moment of vulnerability, Nehemiah recognized the hand of God at work. With caution, he articulated his desire to return to Judah and rebuild the walls of his beloved city. "Should it please the king," Nehemiah implored, "and if your servant has found favor in your sight, send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it." The king, moved by Nehemiah's heartfelt plea, granted his request, providing letters for safe passage and timber from the king's forest. Nehemiah marveled at such grace, understanding it as the divine provision necessary for his daunting task. As he journeyed to Jerusalem, however, adversaries stirred in the shadows. Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite became aware of Nehemiah's arrival, their hearts filled with jealousy and scorn at the impending restoration. Yet, undeterred, Nehemiah conducted a secret night inspection of the demolished walls, assessing the devastation that lay stark under the moon's light. Yet amid such ruin, hope flickered within him, ignited by the vision God placed upon his heart. He gathered the elders and priests, unveiling the plan woven by divine hands. "You see the trouble we are in," he proclaimed, sharing the significance of their mission and declaring, "The hand of my God that has been upon me for good." As the elders rallied to the cause, work commenced, yet so too did the derision from Sanballat and Tobiah. "What are these feeble Jews doing?" they mocked, challenging their resolve and casting doubt upon their mission. Yet Nehemiah, fortified by prayer, responded not with anger but reverence, "Hear, O our God, for we are despised." Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As they labored side by side, the threat of violence loomed ever closer. Yet Nehemiah's call sharpened their resolve, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." The heavy atmosphere thickened with both faith and fear, revealing a profound truth: the call to redemption is fraught with adversity. How would Nehemiah uphold the hopes of his people amid such fierce opposition? Would God's sovereign hand guide them out of despair and into glory, as the shadows of their struggle danced before the promise of divine restoration? As the sun rose over Jerusalem, casting its golden glow on the weary workers, Nehemiah stood among them, his spirit ignited by divine purpose. The sound of hammers echoed through the valley as stones were lifted and placed, renewing the wall that had once been a fortress of the faithful. Yet, even amidst this flurry of activity, the taunts of Sanballat and Tobiah persisted like a relentless storm. Sanballat, with scorn etched upon his face, rallied others to mock the effort. "What are these Jews building? If a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall." His words dripped with venom, meant to sow fear and discord. Nehemiah, sensing the despair that threatened to permeate the hearts of the laborers, turned his gaze heavenward. "Hear, O our God, for we are despised, turn their taunt back on their own heads, and give them up to be plundered in a land where they are captives." Nehemiah 4 verse 4, thus fortified by faith, he encouraged the workers. "Do not be afraid, remember the Lord, who is great and awesome." With renewed strength, they bound themselves to their task, each stroke of the hammer a testament to their commitment to God. Yet, as the wall began to rise, so too did the threats against them. Word came that Sanballat and Tobiah sought to orchestrate an ambush. Fear rippled through the hearts of the builders as they heard the ominous news. Nehemiah, resolute and strong, gathered the people. "The strength of those who bear the burdens is failing, and there is too much rubble. By ourselves, we will not be able to rebuild the wall." Nehemiah 4 verse 10, his words resonated deep within their hearts. "So I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall, in the open places, and I set the people by their clans, with their swords, their spears, and their bows." In the face of adversity, they were reminded of their calling, their unity fortified by purpose. As the people stood together, emboldened and equipped for battle, they heard the sound of trumpet blasts, calling them to stand ready. Nehemiah declared, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes." Nehemiah 4 verse 14, it was a rallying cry that echoed throughout the land, and the hearts of the people surged with determination. As they worked on the wall, Nehemiah kept a vigilant watch, the enemy's schemes ever present. But God's hand was upon them, and in their unity, they reclaimed the very fabric of their identity. The builders labored with one hand and held their swords with the other. And every one of the builders had his sword strapped at his side while he built. Nehemiah 4 verse 18, in the midst of their toil, conspiracies brewed in the shadows. Sanballat sent messages to Nehemiah, attempting to lure him away. "Come, let us meet together at one of the villages." But Nehemiah discerned the intent behind the offer. "I am doing a great work and cannot come down." Nehemiah 6 verse 3, his steadfastness exhibited the strength found in divine purpose, unwavering amidst deception. Thus, the wall, once a broken testament to their failings, began to rise higher each day, rekindling hope among the people. Yet, one question hung heavy in the air: would they be able to see it completed, or would the threats from their adversaries prove too great? As they stood on the precipice of victory and despair, another truth loomed: God's sovereign plan was unfolding, holding within it promises yet unfulfilled, stirring whispers of a greater restoration yet to come. But as the days grew longer, the toil of the laborers weighed heavily upon them, and the sound of hammers echoed amid murmurs of discontent. It was then that Nehemiah, mindful of their growing exhaustion, sought the voice of the Lord. He gathered the leaders and spoke with urgency: "Let us not lose heart, our enemies rise against us, yet our God is greater than all." The walls were nearing completion, rising with the hope and tenacity of generations past, but the adversaries were ever watchful, seeking to shatter the resolve of the people. Sanballat, filled with fury, resolved to sow not only doubt but also division among the builders. "You are all but few, weary from your labors. Your enemies are many, and their wrath burns like fire. Will you withstand this storm?" Nehemiah responded with fervent prayer, lifting his voice to the God of heaven: "Strengthen my hands." Nehemiah 6 verse 9, the people rallied behind him, their hearts ignited by his words. They were not just building a wall, they were reclaiming their identity as the chosen of the Lord. Yet amid the labor, Nehemiah's ears caught whispers of betrayal. Some of the nobles began to align themselves with the enemy, inciting fear among the workers. They claimed, "The strength of the laborers is giving way, and there is much rubble, we cannot rebuild this wall." Nehemiah 4 verse 10, it was then that Nehemiah called forth the nobles and officials, addressing their fears and treachery directly. "You shall not let your brethren be dismayed, speak the truth in love, for our God is fighting for us." His words rang like a trumpet, calling to mind the victories past, stirring faith where there was doubt. In the face of adversity, the builders took their stand firm, they prayed and watched as one, swords drawn, hearts determined. Nehemiah organized them according to their clans, raising banners above them. For our God will fight for us. Nehemiah 4 verse 20, together, they erected shields of faith, each layer of the wall another testament to the covenant promise bestowed upon their ancestors. Still, secrets loomed like shadows in the corners of Jerusalem. Sanballat, infuriated by their unity, sought an audience with Nehemiah once more, sending an emissary with a false message of peace. "Come, let us talk in the village of Ono." But Nehemiah, discerning the danger, responded with unwavering resolve, "I am doing a great work, I cannot come down." Nehemiah 6 verse 3, Sanballat's frustration boiled over. He sent letters filled with threats and slander, seeking to instill fear and undermine Nehemiah's leadership. But the governor stood firm, his heart anchored by the truth of God's promises. "Fear not, for the Lord is with us. He will not forsake his people." As the work continued, the wall rose higher, each stone not merely a fragment of stone and mortar but each laid in dedication and prayer. And as day turned to night, Nehemiah turned inward, questioning, what lies beyond the completion of this wall? In that moment of uncertainty, a shroud of expectancy enveloped him, for he sensed something more was stirring, something grander than the mere restoration of Jerusalem. And unbeknownst to the workers, beyond the horizon, God was preparing the way for a greater deliverance, a promise fulfilled that would ripple through generations. Would they stand firm in faith, knowing that redemption was not just in the wall they built but in the promises of the one who had called them forth? The future held echoes of ancient prophecies that the Lord would gather his people once more and lead them into a new covenant, a story yet to unfold. And it came to pass that as the laborers continued their toil, the sun set upon the golden city, casting long shadows across the rubble-strewn streets. The air was thick with the cries of weary men and women, yet their resolve lit the fading twilight. Nehemiah, burdened by their collective sweat and strain, urged them onward. "Brothers and sisters, in the face of these shadows, let us remember the God of our fathers who delivered us from Egypt. Will he not be our refuge now?" Their voices rose in agreement, a cacophony of strength echoing through the valley. "Yes, our God is a fortress. He shall not forsake us." Together they pressed on, hearts bound by the promise of restoration, but amidst their labor, discontent brewed anew. The nobles who had whispered treachery began to sow discord more openly, spreading tales of woe. "The king of Persia will not allow this wall. He will send an army to crush us." These words, like arrows, pierced the spirits of many. Nehemiah, ever watchful, gathered the people under the starlit heavens and spoke with a voice like thunder, "We are not dismayed by earthly kings, for our God reigns sovereign. Did he not say, 'I will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace'?" Exodus 14 verse 14. The fervor in their hearts swelled, and with renewed vigor, they set to their task. Yet, in the stillness of the night, Sanballat's plan deepened like the shadows around them. He summoned the other leaders of the land, Tobiah, the Ammonite, and Geshem, the Arab, who plotted with him to undermine Nehemiah's mission. "The wall they build shall become a snare to them," Sanballat proclaimed in hushed tones, "for surely they are alone. Let us strike now while their hearts are weary." On the morrow, the builders found themselves beset by rumors and hostile words. "Let us meet and discuss the terms of peace," deceived their oppressors, but Nehemiah discerned the snares, and through prayer, his spirit was fortified. "I am unable to lower myself to fear nor withdraw from the work set before me. Though the mountains tremble and the seas rage," he declared, "we will not falter. Our hands shall build the wall until it is completed, for we are not merely laborers, we are children of the Most High." With certainty, Nehemiah appointed guards to stand watch over the builders. "Let half of you work while the other half bears arms. We fight not against flesh and blood but against powers unseen." Ephesians 6 verse 12. As they labored, each stroke of the hammer seemed to resonate with the heartbeat of divine purpose, and they pressed on, fortified in spirit and bound by brotherhood. Then, once again, it happened. As Nehemiah prayed seeking strength, a voice came as the wind whispering through the stones. Behold, I am sending you a messenger. One who shall reveal the mysteries behind your calling. His heart quickened, for he knew that God was not mute in the face of their struggle. Little did the leaders know how the hand of providence was moving behind the scenes, preparing a way that would lead to a transformation beyond their imagining. As the night deepened, anticipation crackled in the air. What manner of messenger would come? Unbeknownst to Nehemiah and the builders, God's plan, encompassing nations and destinies, was unfolding towards a culmination prophesied since the days of old. Would they heed the call? Would their endurance unveil the mercies yet to come? The phase of darkness was but a moment, for the dawn of divine revelation was nigh, laying the ground for a new covenant, the response of heaven to the cries of earth. What mighty wonders awaited just beyond the horizon? And it came to pass that as Nehemiah fervently sought the Lord's guidance, the shadows of uncertainty lingered over the hearts of the builders. The air was thick with expectation, akin to the stillness before a storm, yet hope burned brightly within them. In the dawn's light, a figure emerged from the horizon, a messenger sent by God's own hand. He approached with a countenance radiant, his eyes ablaze with the truth of heaven. I bring tidings from the Lord, Nehemiah, he declared, his voice like a clarion call that resonated through the valley. Fear not, for the plans of the enemy shall come to naught. Your labor is not in vain. The people gathered closely, for they sensed the weight of the divine proclamation. Nehemiah's heart soared, for he believed in the power of the Almighty to shift the tides of chaos. What then shall we do? He inquired, eager to hear the next word from heaven. Continue the work that is before you, the messenger replied, lifting his hand to point towards the wall. For I say unto you, as it is written, the stones which the builders refused are become the headstone of the corner. Psalm 118 verse 22. This wall shall not only stand as a testament of your perseverance but shall be a beacon of hope to generations yet unborn. With this revelation, a spirit of unity surged among the builders. They cast aside their fears and doubts and returned to the task with newfound strength. Let us not be weary in well-doing, one among them urged, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Galatians 6 verse 9, day by day, as they labored together, the wall began to rise stone upon stone, as if the very hands of God were guiding them. Yet, the adversaries, seeing their progress, redoubled their efforts to instill fear. Let us launch a surprise attack. Sanballat schemed in the shadows. The fear of man is more potent than any wall. At this, Nehemiah gathered the leaders and brought forth a word of encouragement, his voice steady and unyielding. Remember the Lord, who is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons, and your daughters, your wives, and your houses. Nehemiah 4 verse 14, the strength of the Lord infused the hearts of the people as they declared, let us stand firm. Our God fights for us. With their swords at their sides and tools in hand, they continued to work, heartened by the promise of divine protection, but amid these trials, Nehemiah's concern grew for those who suffered at the hands of their fellow countrymen. He saw the plight of those burdened with debt, crying out for relief. Our own are oppressed, and this cannot stand. He proclaimed, for in the pursuit of rebuilding the city, justice must also be restored. Nehemiah summoned the elders and rebuked them, saying, You exact usury from your brethren. This is a grievous sin before our God. Return to them their lands and their debts, for we are one people under one banner. Leviticus 25 verses 35 to 37, his words pierced their hearts, and many repented, setting the foundation for restoration not only of the wall but also of their community. The laborers once again felt the spirit of unity and purpose as they prepared to complete what they began. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the wall that stood half erected, Nehemiah raised his eyes to heaven, sensing a greater purpose at work. O Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. He prayed, invoking the ancient words of the psalmist. Psalm 90 verse 1, and as he uttered this plea, the heavens opened, and a cascade of light enveloped him, revealing glimpses of glories yet to come. The culmination of their struggles might lead to a new reality, shaping not just their future but that of the world. What awaited them on the path ahead was not yet clear, but Nehemiah sensed profound implications under the veil of mystery. Something far greater was emanating from their labor. Would their obedience uncover the fullness of God's sovereign plan? The promise of the ages hung tantalizingly close, awaiting their faithful response in the relentless march towards redemption. And it came to pass, as the laborers toiled beneath the vast heavens, the sound of their hammers echoed like a heartbeat through the city of Jerusalem. Each strike was a testament to their resolve, and with each day, the wall grew taller, a symbol of enduring hope and divine favor. Yet, amid the labor, the whispers of doubt crept into their minds, for the specter of Sanballat and his allies loomed ever larger. Nehemiah, attuned to the unrest brewing in the hearts of the people, called for a gathering at the base of the rising wall. The sun cast an amber glow, illuminating the faces of the weary yet determined workers. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice resonating with conviction, "let us remember the Lord our God, who has called us to this work. He has not brought us this far to abandon us." His words stirred the souls of the builders, yet his heart was heavy with the weight of the burden they all shared. "Our enemies think they can intimidate us into silence. But we shall not bow before their threats. We rebuild for our families, for our future, and for our God." Nehemiah 4 verse 20. As day turned into night, the adversaries plotted their schemes. Sanballat and Tobiah conspired, saying, "Come, let us cause confusion among them, that they may cease the work." And in the stillness of twilight, they sent word to Nehemiah, seeking to lure him away from the city. "Come down to the plains of Ono," they urged, "and let us reason together." But Nehemiah, filled with wisdom and discernment, responded with boldness, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." Nehemiah 6 verse 3. The urgency of their mission weighed on him. To halt the work even momentarily could have dire consequences, yet within the hearts of the workers, doubt began to fester. They spoke among themselves, voices laced with uncertainty. What if the enemy attacks while we labor? Will we be caught unawares? Nehemiah, sensing their fears, called upon the people to prepare. "Guard yourselves with swords and your tools," he commanded, "for we fight not only for the walls but for the very lives of our families." Nehemiah 4 verses 16 to 17. And so, they took their stations, one group at the wall, another at the ready with spear and shield. Day and night passed, marked by the rhythms of divine purpose and earthly struggle. They rallied together in prayer, lifting their voices to the heavens, "O Lord, keep us steadfast. Let not our enemies triumph over us." In this fervent communion, Nehemiah's lead grew profound as he reminded them of their identity. "We are a remnant chosen by God, called to restore and to renew. Even as we build, we reclaim our purpose and our promises." Isaiah 61 verse 4. As they dwelled in unity and strength, the wall reached its pinnacle, witnessing the faithfulness of the Almighty. Yet, unbeknownst to them, the crowning of their labor veiled a deeper truth, one that would unravel the tapestry of time. For God's design was not limited to the rebuilding of a city, it extended to the hearts of nations. Thus, in the twilight of their efforts, when the wall stood complete and the murmurs of victory began to raise hope anew, Nehemiah stood in the stillness, eyes lifted upward. He sensed an impending revelation flickering beyond the horizon. "O mighty God," he prayed, "I perceive there is more than this," for he felt the pulse of a prophecy stirring, reaching beyond his understanding, a divine intertwining of redemption's story. Would they grasp the full significance of their labor? As the stones of the wall embraced each other in their steadfastness, a question resounded through the ages: what other foundations would they unearth in God's sovereign plan? And it came to pass, in the days after the wall was completed, that a moment of tranquility descended upon Jerusalem. The laborers, having poured their hearts into the great undertaking, now found themselves amidst a profound silence that spoke of their triumph. Yet, Nehemiah, vigilant in spirit, recognized that this calm was but a fleeting breath before the storm. As the sun rose over the new battlements, shining upon the stones that held the city's dreams, the people gathered in the market square. Nehemiah addressed them again, his voice steady and filled with divine authority. Rejoice, for the hand of the Lord has been upon us. But let us also be watchful, for the adversaries of our soul do not slumber. Just then, a messenger hastened into the square, his face pale as the dawn. Nehemiah, he exclaimed, Sanballat and Tobiah conspire yet again. They have stirred the nations against us, vowing to overthrow this work. They seek to defame our people and to bring fear upon our hearts. Nehemiah's heart was heavy, yet his resolve strengthened. We shall not falter. He declared. We are the children of God, and He fights for us. Let our prayers be fiery, and let every heart unite in purpose. We are called to rebuild this city not only of stone but of faith. As they gathered to seek the Lord, the prayers ascended like incense, and the sound of their cries filled the heavens. O Lord, deliver us from our enemies and grant us strength. Establish our hearts in courage and our hands in labor. In this moment, Nehemiah sensed a stirring within his spirit, a whisper that tugged at the very essence of his being, revealing the magnitude of their mission. It is not merely walls we defend, he spoke softly to them, but the very covenant of our God. For this is a time of divine intervention. And as they prayed, visions cascaded upon Nehemiah's mind, illuminating the path laid before them. He saw not only the restoration of Jerusalem but also the unfolding of God's eternal plan for all nations, a plan woven through the threads of history and prophecy. In his heart, the words of the prophet Isaiah resonated, For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. Isaiah 65 verse 17. In the days that followed, the threat from their enemies grew, yet Nehemiah and the people stood firm. They established watchmen, precise in their duties, armed with swords and shields, and they dedicated themselves to fervent intercession both by day and by night. Let our voices meld as one, and our spirits unite. Nehemiah inspired. For surely, the Lord has not forgotten His promises. We stand on the brink of revelation, for our struggle is a prelude to His glory. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky with hues of fire, Nehemiah stood upon the completed wall, his heart ignited with hope. He gazed out at the fields beyond, sensing unrest stirring in the nations. There lay a greater conflict ahead, one that would involve kingdoms, alliances, and the sovereign plan of the Almighty. O Lord, he prayed, reveal to us the fullness of thy will. For the struggles we face hint at a greater story, a tapestry woven with the threads of nations, a destiny entwined in the ages. And thus Nehemiah stood, poised between the past and the future, aware that their labor was part of a divine unfolding, one that would echo through the hearts of generations. A mystery loomed ahead, one which would call them to remain steadfast, as the prophecies spoke of nations and judgments. What, then, was the nature of this divine sovereignty that unfolded even now? For as the moon cast its silver glow upon the walls, a question lingered in the air, beckoning every heart to ponder, what divine promises shall emerge amidst the rising tensions? What role shall Jerusalem play in the covenant of redemption, and how shall the nations be woven into God's ultimate design? And it came to pass, in the twilight of that day, as the moonlight kissed the stones of Jerusalem, that Nehemiah gathered the elders and the leaders of the people. Their faces bore the weight of apprehension, yet within their hearts burned the fire of resolve. Brothers and sisters, he began, let us lay our burdens before the Lord, for the threats arise not simply from flesh and blood, but from powers unseen. We must seek His counsel. As they fell upon their knees, the winds whispered through the olive branches, carrying with them the prayers of the faithful. O God of our fathers, you who are the maker of heaven and earth, grant us insight. In the stillness, a profound reverence encircled them, as they sensed the very presence of the Almighty among them. Nehemiah, leaning upon God's promise, recalled the words of the prophet Jeremiah, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29 verse 11. With this in his heart, he rose once more, his eyes aflame with conviction. Though the foes gather as vultures around us, we shall not despair. For our God is a fortress, a refuge in times of trouble. He looked deeply into their eyes, seeing the flicker of hope igniting anew. Let us strengthen our hands for the work ahead, for it is through this adversity that our true character and faith are revealed. In the following days, as the threats loomed larger, Nehemiah and the people engaged in diligent preparation. They posted sentinels at every corner, and at the sound of the trumpet, all were to rally to the defense of Jerusalem. There were murmurs among the people, doubt creeping into the corners of their minds, and yet Nehemiah persisted, exhorting them with courage. What we undertake here is not for our own glory, but for our God whose name shall be exalted. During this time of preparation, a curious event transpired. A foreign emissary approached the walls, a messenger of Sanballat and Tobiah. He bore a message of deceit, seeking to dissuade Nehemiah from his great work. "Come, let us meet together," he implored, "that we may discuss these matters in the plain of Ono." Nehemiah, wise in the ways of the Lord, perceived the treachery that lay beneath. "I am doing a great work," he replied. "I cannot stop to meet with you. Why should the work cease while I leave it to go down to you?" Nehemiah 6 verse 3. The messenger retreated in defeat, but the whispers of fear continued to reverberate through the hearts of the people. Yet, Nehemiah pressed on, anchoring them in faith. "Fear not. The Lord our God fights for us." He called upon them to strive with great industry, rallying their spirits as they continued to rebuild the city, and in the darkest of nights, when shadows threatened to engulf their hope, Nehemiah climbed once more to the battlements of the wall. The stars shone brightly, and in that celestial gaze, he found renewed strength. "Lord," he prayed, "you have called us to be a light unto the nations. Cause our light to shine before men, that they may see our good deeds and glorify our Father in heaven." Matthew 5 verse 16. As hope danced within the hearts of the people, the ground began to tremble with the rising of a yet greater conflict on the horizon. The sovereign plan of the Almighty was at work, intricately weaving the tapestry of not only Jerusalem but the nations beyond. Thus the question lingered in their hearts: how would God's hand shape the destinies of empires, and what sacred role awaited his chosen people in the grand story of redemption? As the clouds thickened, the promise of a profound revelation beckoned them onward, calling out through the ages, for the time would come when all that was hidden would be unveiled, revealing the glorious mysteries of the Lord. And it came to pass, as Nehemiah and the people strengthened their hearts for the battle ahead, that word of their resolve reached the ears of Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab. Filled with fury and jealousy, they conspired against Jerusalem, sending a letter filled with threats and lies. "Let it be known," they wrote, "that you are rebuilding this city to rebel against the king. We shall appeal to the authorities, and they will come upon you with wrath. Your work shall cease." When Nehemiah received this message, he sought the Lord with fervent prayer. "O God, hear their threats, and turn their anger back upon them. We are your servants, and we trust in your might." He then raised his voice to the people, saying, "Do not let your hands grow weak. We shall erect this wall, for our God fights for us." The days turned into weeks, and with each sunrise, the walls grew higher, rising like a stronghold against their foes. Yet, amidst their labor, the threat of attack loomed ever closer. Nehemiah, seeing the fear in the faces of his kin, called a meeting. "Gather, O children of Israel. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." Nehemiah 4 verse 14. As they worked, half the men labored while the other half stood guard with swords, shields, and bows. They took turns, for the task was great, and they were overwhelmed by the adversaries around them. "Thus we continued to build the wall," Nehemiah recorded, "and all the while, we remained vigilant." Nehemiah 4 verse 21. Conflict stirred beyond the walls, as the enemy plotted in the darkness, and Nehemiah, ever watchful, sensed the urgency to remain steadfast. It was then that he received yet another letter, a deceptive ploy inviting him to meet in the plains of Ono. "Let us settle this matter," it beckoned, "for it would be treason if you were to ignore the king's decree." With a heart steadfast in the purpose God had set before him, Nehemiah replied, "I am doing a great work, and cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it to meet you?" Nehemiah 6 verse 3. Their attempts to dissuade him only drew the resolve of the people stronger, reinforcing their will to see the work completed for the glory of God. As the construction resonated within the hearts of the faithful, murmurs of treachery spread through the corners of Jerusalem. Yet Nehemiah did not yield to fear, for the Lord had declared through the prophet Isaiah, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Isaiah 54 verse 17. In a vision one night, Nehemiah beheld a great and terrible day approaching, where the Lord would gather nations for judgment. Yet amidst the tumult, there shone a path of redemption, a covenant renewed, for God had not forgotten his people. The whispers of the prophets echoed in his soul, revealing that a remnant would rise, even from the ashes, to proclaim his glory. The days continued to unfold, the work persisted, and as the first light of dawn broke upon the completed wall, Nehemiah turned his gaze toward the heavens. What plans, O Lord, are you forming for us? What stories shall we tell of your faithfulness? Thus it was that the people, emboldened by faith and strength found in their Creator, awaited the next unfolding of his sovereign plan, knowing that a greater revelation lay ahead, one that would forever alter their destinies and illuminate his glory among the nations. For the echoes of prophecy whispered a truth, one that would resound through generations. For behold, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth, do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43 verse 19. And it came to pass, that upon the completion of the wall, a mighty wind was felt throughout Jerusalem, carrying with it the essence of divine approval, like the fragrance of incense rising from the altar. The laborers stood in awe, their hearts knit together in gratitude for the Lord who had delivered them. Nehemiah, standing atop the built wall, saw the people gathered around, weary yet triumphant, each face reflecting the undying light of hope birthed from struggle. "Rejoice, O people of God," Nehemiah called, his voice rising above the tumultuous echoes. "For the hand of our Lord has equipped us, and we have risen together to revive the sacred calling. The walls that stand shall be a testament to our unity and faith in him." With the wall built and the gates restored, the people gathered to consecrate the new edifice, offering heartfelt prayers and sacrifices unto the Lord. As the smoke from their offerings ascended, the glory of the Lord enveloped the city like the morning sun breaking forth over the hills. "Let us not forget," Nehemiah continued, "this endeavor is not simply a restoration of stone, but a rekindling of our covenant relationship with our God. We must now return to his laws and commands, for it is through obedience that his blessings will flow." In response, the priests and Levites rose, proclaiming the word of the Lord, reading aloud from the law of Moses. Hence, the people began to weep, their hearts pierced by the weight of remembrance for their transgressions, yet they were assured by Nehemiah's words of hope, "Do not sorrow, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." Amidst the sounds of sobbing, Nehemiah addressed them in gentleness, guiding them towards the path of restoration and renewal. Today, we celebrate God as provisions and mercy, not in mourning for what was lost, but in rejoicing for what has been restored. Go forth, partake of the good things the Lord has provided, and share joy with your neighbors. As the joy of the Lord swept through Jerusalem, the people shared their abundance, feasting together and praising God for his deliverance. And it came to pass that several days later, Nehemiah convened a gathering of the elders, leaders, and all the people, for he sensed the urgency of the divine mission still unfolding. "We must remain vigilant," he urged, "for the adversary will not relent merely because the walls are up. The true fortress is in our hearts, rooted in his word." Through fervent prayer and collective worship, the community of Jerusalem bound itself afresh to the Lord's decrees. Records were meticulously kept, for Nehemiah understood that the key to maintaining their freedom lay in remembrance of their past, their covenant, and the faithfulness of God through generations. Among the congregation arose individuals who had once ignored the Lord, now transformed and eager to return to the fold. As Nehemiah called forth the names of the faithful, many rose in commitment, rekindling their dedication to follow the Lord, declaring, "We are his people, set apart by his grace." In the ensuing years, the city flourished as God's favor rested upon them. The walls that stood firm became a shield, not just against physical threats, but a boundary carved by divine purpose. The adversaries of Israel, seeing their unity and renewed devotion, were filled with dread, for they understood that the God of heaven was their ally, a power greater than any earthly kingdom. Nehemiah, with eyes keen on the horizon, sensed a shift approaching. He knew the tasks ahead were not limited merely to physical restoration, the mantle of spiritual renewal had been laid upon them. "We must share this light with those beyond our walls," he proclaimed to the people, and thus began the proclamation of God's greatness, as the children of Israel shared their stories, their testimonies of rebirth and revelation. Messengers were sent into neighboring lands, bearing words of hope, reminding all nations of the great things God had done. As the years unfolded, the seeds of God's kingdom spread like the blossoms of spring, reaching and transforming hearts, giving rise to a people not just rebuilt, but renewed, living testimony of God's everlasting love and faithfulness. And it came to pass, all that Nehemiah had prayed and worked for culminated in a profound truth: the walls not only secured the city but also fortified the spirit of a people destined for a new covenant. In the breadth of this story lies an invitation for every heart, to reflect upon the divine deliverance, to commit oneself to God's work, and to bear His light into every stratum of life. For indeed, the true promise had yet to be birthed, resonating in the hearts of generations yet to come. Beloved reader, now is the time to join hands in this sacred journey. Subscribe immediately to continue exploring powerful truths of God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's message through the algorithm, reaching those who desperately need hope. Comment below with your own spiritual reflections and how this journey has shaped your faith. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear of God's unchanging truth. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to the blessings that flow from His Word.